Tom Giannotti, attorney at the Butler Law Firm. I want to talk today about what we call subrogation or reimbursement in personal injury cases. What that means is basically what has to get paid back at the end of a case. And an experienced personal injury lawyer can help you navigate this process and avoid unpleasant surprises at the end of an injury case. A lot of folks may not be aware that a lot of times your health insurance, which would have paid benefits on your behalf as the result of your treatment from an injury, can in some instances at least require that they be paid back that money, and that is very important when it comes to evaluating any potential settlement offer in a case, and in terms of closing a case. It's not good to be in a situation at the end of a case where you're not prepared for that situation, and again, an experienced lawyer can navigate that process and avoid any unpleasant surprises at the end of the case. There's a few types of claimants, as we'll call them. One could just be the hospital, the doctor's office. Pretty much any medical provider can file what they call a lien, and it's not always so simple because the provider has to comply with the Georgia law regarding healthcare liens. They've got to do certain things within a certain period of time and give you notice of it, and if they don't do that properly, then that can sometimes invalidate the lien. The amount that they file a lien for, in other words, the amount of the bills, has to also be reasonable by law, and that isn't always the case. A lot of times lawyers are able to negotiate with the providers to come to a favorable resolution of any liens and avoid having to possibly litigate that issue down the road, which clients will often prefer. And oftentimes there may be something where the providers hasn't complied at all with this, and the obligation to actually repay it is questionable. Again, having an experienced lawyer is critical to navigating those issues. When you have private health insurance, though, that can sometimes involve what is a federal law called ERISA, which usually involves an employer. If you have health insurance through your private employer, that's oftentimes, but not always, what they call an ERISA plan, and those types of plans can often require, in the language, in other words, the contract that you have with that health insurer can actually require 100% of the amount that the insurance company has paid to be paid back in the event of any settlement or verdict. So getting out ahead of those ERISA claims is especially important in those cases, and there are a lot of nuances to the ERISA law that are too much to go into in this video, but suffice to say, again, having an experienced lawyer on your side is especially important when you're dealing with an ERISA plan. Not all private insurance plans are what they call ERISA plans, and there's also marketplace plans. Those are government-sponsored health insurance plans through the health insurance marketplace, but they are through private companies. Those are typically not subject to ERISA, which is good for injury claimants, because as with other types of cases that are not ERISA, they are subject to what Georgia calls the made whole rule, which means that if the amount of insurance, for example, is not enough to compensate you for all your injuries, pain and suffering, lost wages, etc., and your medical bills on top of that, then you haven't been made whole. And so it wouldn't be fair to you to have to require you to pay back all this money to a health insurance company, for example, or medical provider, and then have you get nothing at the end or very little. And that's obviously something that comes into play when you're talking about negotiating a possible settlement. Again, another reason why having an experienced lawyer is critically important, so that you don't end up in a situation down the road where somebody wasn't aware of a lien or wasn't aware of the type of health insurance plan they were dealing with, and then all of a sudden you have not enough money to cover everything. Other types of reimbursement claims will include Medicare or Medicaid as well. Two different types. You have the state level Medicaid, which is typically more favorable to deal with than Medicare. Medicare can be, they typically won't have paid as much because they get pretty good rates with providers, but they do have a right to be paid back. And if the lawyer doesn't deal with that properly, or if you try to handle a claim yourself, that can lead to a lot of problems down the road if you don't have somebody that knows what they're doing. Tricare, if you've been in the military, you know what Tricare is. Or if you're a spouse or dependent of someone in the military, Tricare is the military's health insurance. They have their own separate folks that deal with reimbursement claims through the JAG office. Our office has experience dealing with those folks as well, and they'll typically be willing to work with you. It can take some time to get through the bureaucracy and when dealing with that Tricare, but all of these different types of claims all have a lot of nuances to them, and not to be too redundant, but if you don't have someone that is knowledgeable and experienced in dealing with these issues, it can cause you a lot of problems down the road and lead to some unhappy issues that when you think you've gotten a good settlement in your case, and that's just the half of it. And so if you are interested in learning more about this, check out our website, as well as if you have a case where you think you have issues involving this, give us a call. You can contact us by phone, email, or on our website, Butler Law Firm. Thank you.